Up next, we have our patron of the Bob Brown Foundation, Bob Brown, and I'd like to hand over to Bob. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Jenny. There is no other Jenny Webber. I want to thank everybody at Takayna and everybody at the Foundation and all of you for making this such a great show tonight, but in particular for all the work that's gone into this petition, which now stands at 254,246 signatures. That's by far the biggest petition, certainly for the environment, in Australian history. And I can tell you this, we were delighted in 1981 when the then biggest petition in history came before this Parliament with 32,000 signatures on it. This is nearly 10 times as big. That's where the Tarkine's going. Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Shani. It's a terrific privilege to be working with the Tasmanian Aboriginal community and centre to rescue the Tarkine. On New Year's Day, 1816, Mr. Kelly and his whaleboat from Hobart landed on the Tarkine coast. And they were about to step ashore on that long, white, amazing sandy beach when 6 takayna warriors came out, over 6 feet tall, war paint on their faces, spears in their hands. And they were about to flee in, the Kelly group were about to flee in terror when they made some arrangement that they could leave in peace. But the message was the wrong one, because within 30 years, the Aboriginal people of Takayna were cruelly tricked, murdered, removed from their homeland. And the part of the great and noble venture that we have here in this Tarkine campaign is to return it to the spiritual descendants of the takayna people, the modern, feisty, on the move, power people of Lutruwita, the Aboriginal community of this island. And what better could we do than return this 7%? That's all it is, to its rightful owners for their custodianship, their social interaction, and for acquainting the rest of us with that spiritual connection with land, through ceremony, through song, through feast, through simply living with the land, that is essential if we 8 billion people on this planet, let alone the 500,000 in Tasmania or the 25 million on continental Australia, are going to get a recipe for rescuing ourselves from the disaster coming down the line at the hands of modern, greedy, thoughtless, myopic materialism. Just last week, we had the scientists warn that if the temperature in global heating goes up to 6 degrees above average, it's already 1 degree above average, and that's accelerating, all life on Earth will be finished. Not this species, not that species, not the 8 billion of us, biggest marauding mammal herd ever on the face of the planet, but all life on Earth. And here we have a Prime Minister that holds up coal in the Parliament and says this is good for us. And here we have a Premier who says there'll be no protection of the Tarkine or those forests or the living creatures in it, the millions of our fellow species in those rainforests, on those plains, down that coastline, in those rivers. While he can subsidise with taxpayers' money in a state which doesn't have enough money for its schools and hospitals, a logging industry which is a dinosaur and should be the only thing in Tasmania sent to extinction. Which brings me to Patagonia, this fabulous outfit which is doing so much to introduce the world to the Tarkine. This wilderness, which an American outdoor organisation voted of the 10 wild most desirable places to go to on Earth just a couple of years ago, topped the list. That's the Tasmanian Tarkine. Will Hodgman doesn't get that. He doesn't understand that the beauty and the wildness of this island is something other people do not have. You don't have it if you're in Shanghai. It's not there if you're in Tokyo. Chicago's got none within reach. Melbourne does. It's got the biggest temperate rainforest in Australia at its back door, just across Bass Strait, and that's in the Tarkine. And what is in that rainforest, and the plains, and on the coastline? But the magnificent creature we've seen up on the screen here today, the world's largest crayfish, largest invertebrate in fresh water, which grows up to 1 metre in length and 6 kilograms in weight. Where is the centre for people to go and see the world's biggest freshwater crayfish? In Tasmania. Why has this government not got that on display? Instead of sending in the chainsaws to log the forests, to muddy the waters, to help send that creature to extinction, because when you put mud in the water and cover the pebbles, the young ones can't hide, they get eaten, end of species. And Todd Walsh tells us that just 30,000 hectares of forest in the catchments, the most vital nurseries for these crayfish, will ensure their survival. And this Premier has said, I won't do that. No, I won't. I want them logged. Where's the vision? Where's the spirit? Where's the Tasmanian representation and leadership in a Premier that fails to see the value of protecting those rivers, those creatures? What about the greatest eagle in Australia, the Tasmanian wedgetail? Its stronghold in the Tarkine. I'm holding out 2 metres. The biggest one was 3 metres in wingspan. I've been out there on the plain with Paul when 2 came across and circled over our heads, and one went back, presumably, to its nesting site, and the other one spiralled down and landed 20 metres from us to let us know that it was the predominant creature on that plain, that this was its home, that we were visitors privileged to be with it, but that ecosystem belonged to it. What about the quolls, the wombats, the Tasmanian devils? This is the stronghold of that creature, now threatened with extinction due to the mouth ulcer disease. What about the swift parrots? What about the unmapped orchids? One discovered in BioBlitz by the scientists out there just this weekend. How many other species do we know nothing about get eliminated by Hodgman's logging and Hodgman's licensing of off-road vehicles going down those beaches, held up now by legal action from the Tasmanian Aboriginal Centre? The Aboriginal people fighting again against the manifest wrong by a Premier of this state and his environment. State and federal environment ministers have ticked off on off-road vehicles smashing through those middens, those cultural sites, those spiritual places for no good reason. Drive down there, drive back, another one scored. And on the beaches is more than Indigenous heritage. At the moment, the hooded plovers are nesting on the Tarkine coast. Another species listed as moving rapidly to extinction in Australia. These little creatures, as big as a hen's, a domestic fowl chicken, which run past along the beach, but have their nest at the high tide level, which is trampled and smashed by off-road vehicles. What about the ruddy turnstones, which come down from Siberia? These little birds fly all the way from Siberia. No fossil fuels coming out of them. And land and feed on that magnificent beach, but are disregarded by the off-road vehicles that are due to be licensed if further action doesn't succeed, to go down sight unseen, smashing their way up down the Tarkine coast. Now that's a little bit of the problem. Here's the answer. It's with the Tasmanian Aboriginal people, whose feisty spirit inspires us all. It's with all of us and our connection with nature and our determination that a generation, 2 generations, 1,000 generations from now will not be deprived of life on this planet by our actions. That we can pull our belts in, that we can use wisdom, that we can see and feel intergenerational equity, even with people who aren't alive today, because they will love life as much as we love it, and they will want in their lifetimes the natural bounty that we have in our lifetime. Difference is, they can't come back and fix it up. It's ours to defend. And as Scott has said, we may be tested. If the off-road vehicles come down the Tarkine coast and the Indigenous people, the Aboriginal community, go over there in defiance of that, I for one, and I hope many of you will be over there with them to say, wrong way, go back. It's not so hard. It's not so hard putting your hand up to motorised vehicles which are marauding nature. In fact, it's a pleasure to be able to do so. So, 254,246 signatures on a global petition aimed at saving the Tarkine, a connection with the people in Patagonia and their lands, because we were connected with them 60 million years ago, and we share so many plants and animal species, different but of the same origin. And Rick Ridgway from Patagonia says he thinks the Tarkine is the mother forest of the New Zealand and South American forests, which are so similar. We don't know that. What we do know is that the dinosaurs on this planet, back beyond that time, were feeding on those exact same forest species. What a magnificent treasure trove this is. What a great privilege it is to be alive in 2018, pursuing the defence of this environment, of this Tarkine, of this jewel, of this magnificent piece of Tasmania, which, like the Franklin, which, like the farmland of Wesley Vale, which, like the walls of Jerusalem, which, like Cradle Mountain, which Weindorfer in 2010 said should be a national park for all the people of all times. Ditto the Tarkine, ditto the Indigenous Tarkine of the future. We are on the move. It will be protected. Tasmanians, Australians, people around the world are coming to the defence of the Tarkine, and the question of whether the Tarkine will be protected, be world heritage, be back in the hands of the Aboriginal people is not a question of if, but when. And the more we get active, the sooner that will be. So let's save the Tarkine.